Good afternoon, everyone. It's after 2. I'd like to start shortly. Please take your seats. Good afternoon, everyone. We are ready to start. So I did say this morning that I would take records, the summary records through 6 through 9. I've had a request to hold off on 8 and 9 until the start of this evening's session, so I will accommodate that. So we will do records 6 and 7 now. So we'll take comments on CoP19 COM2 record 6. Don't see any comments on record 6, so we'll take it that we adopt record 6. Taking comments on COP19 COM2 record 7. United States.
Thank you, Chair. For agenda item 48, the definition of the term appropriate and acceptable destinations for the draft decision directed at the Secretariat 19.AA. The draft decision should read, issue a notification to the parties within 1 year of the close of the 19th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, inviting feedback on experiences with using the guidance. And then the United States had documents and other information provided on the CITES webpage, and then continue the rest of the decision.
Thank you, United States. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm so sorry. Regarding item 66.3, 66.2.1, is it under the item 6? Report under this report? Sorry.
Thank you, Japan. 66.2 is in record 8, which we will take at the start of this evening's session. So later today, we'll consider that. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Then I would like to send our gratitude to the Standing Committee and the CITES Secretariat for drafting the comprehensive document 75 on rhinoceros.
I'm sorry, Vietnam. We are on CoP19 Committee 2 Summary Record 7 at the moment. We are not.
Okay.
I'm not opening the floor again on the Rhino Doc 75 at this point.
Thank you.
Japan, I still have your flag raised. Are you taking the floor again?
Thank you very much. We have two opinions regarding the summary record 6. Regarding the item 66.3, to delete Japan from the supporting countries of 19.DD, because at first opinion of Japan was to be rejected whole of the 66.3. And the second opinion from Japan is regarding 66.2.1. We would like to insert the following sentences.
Japan, I've just, in response to your
Sorry.
earlier question, I've advised that 66.2.1 is in record 8, which is for tonight's consideration. So I'll
sorry,
ask you to hold that, please.
Sorry.
So even though I had indicated that we had adopted record 6, I will take Japan's amendment to record 6. The Secretariat has also reminded me of a change that we failed to pick up. Thank you. The Secretariat's reminded me that the record doesn't reflect that we also agree to delete decisions 18.120. So this is 66.1. Agree to delete decisions 18.120, 121, 227, 182 and 183, which we noticed when we rechecked the video recording. So with that, I think that we adopt record 6. I'll take any other comments on record 7. I don't see any other comments on record 7, so we adopt record 7 based on our discussions. Okay, so before our break, we were on COP19 document 75 on rhinoceros. I would like to sum up where I think we are at, because it is a little bit complicated, and then take a stock take of that. So I will walk us through as carefully as I can. And I'll start with the things where I think we have agreement. So on the proposed amendments to Resolution Conf 9.14, Rev CoP 17, outlined in Annex 2. I think we agree to these amendments, and I think we agree to the amendment proposed by the European Union to pick up some of the language in Decision 18.110 and insert that as a new paragraph in this resolution. So having a look at lunchtime, European Union, I hope this is okay with you. We thought that your proposed insertion would work under operative paragraph 1, which begins, urges all parties to, as new paragraph F. It is the central part of Decision 18.110, but I will read it. So new paragraph F under 1. Continuously review trends associated with the illegal killing of rhinoceroses and illegal trade in rhinoceros specimens, and the measures and activities they are implementing to address these crimes to ensure that these measures and activities remain effective. The second amendment from the European Union on this resolution was to add the words "and trends" into paragraph 8. So the paragraph would read, request the IUCN SSC African and Asian rhino specialist groups and traffic to engage with range and implicated states as appropriate, including by conducting a survey focusing on range and implicated states and relevant experts to gather information on challenges. We would strike comma and, we would add comma, best practices and trends associated with addressing rhinoceros poaching and horn trafficking, and it would carry on from there. I did note that there was a request to clarify what implicated states are, so I would just ask the Secretariat, are you in a position to just offer us a clarification on implicated states?
Thank you, Chair. The implicated states refers to states that are affected by illegal trade in rhino specimens. Thanks, Chair.
So with that clarification and the two amendments proposed by the European Union, I think that we agree to the amendments to Resolution Conf 914, Rev CoP 17. It's my conclusion that we agree to renew Decision 18.116 as contained in Annex 3. Turning to the new draft decisions, it's my conclusion that we agree to adopt Draft Decision 19AA in Annex 3 and Draft Decision 19BB in Annex 3. It's also my conclusion that we adopt Draft Decision 19FF with the amendment proposed by the United Kingdom. So I will read the amendment into the record. So 19FF, directed to the Secretariat. Subject to external funding, the Secretariat shall convene a follow-up rhinoceros enforcement task force meeting consisting of representatives. The insertion is of national enforcement agencies, including those involved in combating organised crime, and the decision would carry on from there with from parties. So it's my conclusion then, so that we're clear, 19AA, 19BB, 19GG as amended by the United Kingdom. The decisions on which we have not come to a consensus position in my assessment at this point in time are draft decisions 19CC, 19DD, and 19EE. So these are the three decisions directed to various parties. I have heard a number of parties supporting the original decisions. Then we had some proposed amendments from the United Kingdom. I've heard roughly even parties in support and opposing the amendments from the United Kingdom. And I'd also like to note that we also had several parties who, referring specifically to themselves, were concerned about being included in these decisions. So I don't feel like I'm in a position at this point in time to conclude where the committee has landed on 19CC, DD and EE. I am hesitant to reopen the floor too much here because I think perhaps it might be better to send interested parties away to a very small group with a very limited mandate, just focusing on those 3 draft decisions that I don't think that we can conclude on at this point in time. I'm comfortable with the rest of the document. I'm not comfortable that we have a decision either way that I could call at this point in time. So pending any other suggestions or concern with that approach, I would like to give those parties interested in these particular decisions the opportunity to discuss further. Not seeing anybody concerned about that, so with that I will strike a small working group who will consider draft decisions 19CC, 19DD and 19EE. I'll also ask them to consider draft decision 19GG because that may need some consequential amendments just to ensure that it correctly refers to any draft decisions that are amended by that working group. Kenya, thank you. We have captured your suggestion and we'll include it in the mandate for this working group. So to be clear, it is the draft decisions with the amendments from the United Kingdom that have been proposed on the floor that I will task the working group to consider and to return with consolidated decisions in an in-session ComDoc for the consideration of the committee. Zimbabwe, you're requesting the floor. Is it because you'd like to join the working group?
Yes, Madam, I would like to join the group.
Okay. I will take membership from parties first for this working group. I would like to keep it limited as far as possible, particularly to parties that are mentioned or have spoken in our discussions so far. I did take quite a number of parties. Okay, I'm going to close the party list for the working group. Oh. If you just pressed off your button. I haven't read the list yet. You got it? Thankfully, the secretariat's very quick with a pen. So in future, just wait until I read you, otherwise we might miss you. So I have China, the Czech Republic, European Union, Zimbabwe, Vietnam, United States, Kenya, Botswana, United Kingdom, Namibia, United Arab Emirates, and South Africa. can clear the party list. I will invite observers. Okay, I will take this list of observers. Conservation Force, EIA US, WWF, Dallas Safari Club, Wildlife Justice Commission, Amboseli, and Traffic. So I would like to see if we can find a chair for this working group so that they can get down to work quickly. I would like to ask the Czech Republic if they would be prepared to chair the working group. European Union.
The Czech Republic would like to invite other states to chair the working group. Sorry.
So that I don't tie us up, I will let the working group find themselves a chair. The record will show I keep trying. Conservation Force, you're asking for the floor?
Yes, sorry, Madam, to intervene at this stage, but I just was thinking that on these species-related working groups, it would be good as a general principle if some range states could chair the group. It's just a suggestion. Sorry for that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Conservation Force. So we will move on to CoP19 document 71.1 and document 71.2, as I've done in the past. Both documents are on pangolins, mantis species. So as I've done in the past, I propose to introduce these two documents together. So I will take document 71.1 and then I will ask the United Kingdom to introduce 71.2. CoP19 document 71.1 has been submitted by the Standing Committee in consultation with the Chair of the Animals Committee. I understand the Chair of the Animals Committee will introduce the document. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I present this document on behalf of the Standing Committee. It has been submitted by the Standing Committee in consultation with the Chair of the Animals Committee. At COP18, decisions 18238 to 18243 on pangolins were adopted. They were directed to the pangolin range states, the Secretariat, the Animals Committee, and the Standing Committee, as well as to AGOs, NGOs, and international aid agencies. The decisions directed the pangolin range states to take urgent steps to develop and implement in situ pangolin management and conservation programs and report on their implementation to the Secretariat. The Secretariat should, with experts and the range states, develop conversion parameters for scales of all pangolin species that would enable the reliable determination of the number of animals associated with any quantity of pangolin scales seized. The Secretariat was tasked then to report on these activities to the Animals Committee, the Animals Committee to the Standing Committee, and the Standing Committee to the COP. At AC 31, the Secretariat informed the committee that it had received no information from the range states on any management and conservation programs for pangolins. At SC 74, the committee encouraged pangolin range states to urgently do so and proposes now to COP19 to renew this particular decision. Also at AC 31, the committee was not able to review the conversion parameters for pangolin scales as these had not yet been available and therefore proposed renewal of these decisions as well. Thanks to the generous funding of the UK, the Secretariat, in cooperation with the relevant experts and pangolin range states, prepared a report on the national conservation status of pangolin species, on legal and illegal trade in pangolins, on stocks of specimens of pangolins and stockpile management, and on enforcement issues, which is available on the CITES website. SC74 also noted various tools that can assist parties in the implementation of Resolution Conf 17.10 on conservation of and trade in pangolins. In order to continue its work on pangolins, the Standing Committee agreed to submit to COP19 draft decisions as contained in Annex 1 to the present document. So the Conference of the Parties is therefore invited to renew Decision 18238 and adopt the draft decisions in Annex 1 of this document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Animals Committee. I'd now like to invite the United Kingdom to introduce COP19 Document 71.2, Proposed Amendments to Resolution Conf 17.10. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. The threat to pangolins from overexploitation remains a significant concern. Incentives for the harvest and illegal trade of pangolins and their parts remains high, driven by financial value, particularly for their scales. Between 2016 and 2020, there were 955 seizures involving pangolins in 33 countries, estimated to amount to 259,000 pangolins. This is indicative of highly organised criminal operations and is just the tip of the iceberg. It is for this reason that the UK has proposed in Document 71.2 a strengthening of Resolution Conf 1710 and the decisions proposed by the Standing Committee. We consider that together these changes will allow us to take more effective action to protect pangolins, action which is currently hindered by ongoing illegal trade, by limited reporting, by poor species-level trade data, poor information on status in the wild, limited coordinated intelligence-driven enforcement actions, limited awareness raising and demand reduction strategies, insufficient quantification of stockpiles, and the existence of domestic markets that may be facilitating illegal trade. We do note the Secretariat's comments on the proposed amendments to Res Conf 1710, paragraphs 1D, 3 and 4, which relate to reporting on the closure of domestic markets, stockpiles, and other information to help understand legal and illegal trade. And we do appreciate that this is an additional burden for both parties and the Secretariat. and we are prepared to discuss whether this information is or can be provided in a more streamlined or effective way. But we cannot escape the fact that pangolins remain the most trafficked mammal in the world, and improved reporting is essential in helping to address this. We know that legal domestic markets can provide a cover for illegal international trade, and poorly controlled stockpiles a potential source of illegal scales. So robust reporting will ensure we better understand the conservation implications of trade, of poaching, and of control and enforcement efforts. And we are conscious of the fact that the recent questionnaire circulated to parties by the Secretariat regarding stocks and stockpiles management did not yield a comprehensive return. It therefore remains unclear as to whether adequate systems and control measures are in place to keep records of stocks of pangolin products and ensure they are secure, as recommended in Resolution COP 1710. In terms of specific amendments proposed by the Secretariat to Res Conf 1710, with the exception of the amendments proposed under paragraphs E and G in the body of document 71.1, our strong preference remains the adoption of the amendments proposed in the UK document 71.2. With regard to the proposed decisions, we would be content to accept the consolidated version proposed by the Secretariat in document 71.1, but with the addition of subparagraph 19GGC in document 71.2, directing the Standing Committee to develop time-bound and measurable recommendations for parties that support addressing the illegal trade in pangolins. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United Kingdom. So I haven't opened the floor to parties yet, and what I did want to do is the United Kingdom has commented on the Secretariat's comments on the documents. So I did want to give the Secretariat a moment to just explain their comments so that we have that in our minds when we begin our discussions. So Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the comments of the Secretariat, these comments apply to both of the documents submitted for this agenda item. The Secretariat recommends that the Conference of the Parties adopt the proposed amendments to Resolution Conf 17.10 that are presented in Annex 1 to document CoP19 Doc 71.2, subject to further amendments as proposed by the Secretariat and consolidated in paragraph T of the comments provided by the Secretariat. These further amendments mainly aim to reduce the reporting burden on parties, as mentioned, and as explained in paragraphs E to L of the Secretariat's comments. The Secretariat notes that the draft decisions proposed in the two documents partially overlap, and to facilitate the discussions on pangolins here at the present meeting, the Secretariat consolidated the draft decisions from the two documents and included its proposed changes. The Secretariat recommends that the Conference of the Parties retain decisions 18238 and 18239 and adopt draft decisions 19AA, 19BB, 19CC, 19DD, and 19FF as amended by the Secretariat and presented in paragraph U of the comments of the Secretariat. The Secretariat further recommends the deletion of decisions 18240, 18241, 18242, and 18243 on pangolins, since these have been implemented and where relevant, the aspects of these decisions have been incorporated in the draft decisions presented in paragraph U. Thank you, Chair.
So I will open the floor on these two documents, noting the comments of the United Kingdom as it relates to the Secretariat's comments on their amended resolution Conf 1710, and on their comments on the draft decision. So I noted that they were comfortable with the Secretariat's comments with the exception of 19GG paragraph C. Looking at the UK to make sure I've got that correct, little c. Thank you. All right, so I will open the floor. I see the European Union, followed by Burkina Faso.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states. We agree that the two documents 71.1 and 71.2 should be considered jointly as proposed by the Secretariat. At Standing Committee 74, it has been reported that pangolins continue to be significantly affected by illegal trade, and that due to the lack of up-to-date knowledge and data about pangolin abundance and population trends, determining the true impact of poaching and illegal trade remain a challenge. In particular, we consider it important to identify seized pangolin specimens at species level and report the seizures at species level in their annual illegal trade reports, as agreed at the Standing Committee 74. We believe that better species-level identification of seized specimens would clearly be a useful tool to enhance protection of certain pangolin populations subject to greater pressure by illegal trade. We would like to thank United Kingdom for their document, and we support the recommendations suggested. We welcome the proposed amendments to Resolution Conf 1710 on conservation of and trade in pangolins, such as ensure strict enforcement controls to address illegal trade in pangolins, close of domestic markets for commercial trade, to ensure enforcement units and personnel receive relevant and effective support in anti-poaching operations, or to remove references to parts and derivatives of pangolins from the official pharmacopoeia and include acceptable substitute products. We also support the recommendation to work with IQIC partners to promote increased capacity and training amongst the law enforcement community to tackle the serious nature and impact of illegal trade in pangolins, and to improve cooperation and multidisciplinary approach in the detection, investigation, and prosecution of crimes related to this species. We therefore support the consolidated set of proposed decisions as proposed by the Secretariat. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, European Union. Burkina Faso.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Le pangolin n'existe plus sur la liste des espèces au Burkina Faso. Et ça, c'est depuis au moins une dizaine d'années. Et donc, la situation par rapport à cette espèce nous intrigue beaucoup. Et nous pensons que son inscription, l'inscription de toutes les espèces de pangolins à l'annexe 1 à la CITES à la COP 2017 était déjà une étape importante pour lutter contre son exploitation. Nous pensons que les États de l'ère de répartition, les pays de transit et de consommation des produits et sous-produits du pangolin devraient prendre des mesures supplémentaires pour lutter efficacement contre le trafic de cette espèce. Nous savons bien que les marchés nationaux de pangolins contribuent d'une manière ou d'une autre au braconnage et au commerce illégal de l'espèce. Pour cette raison, la fermeture est clairement un élément essentiel de toute stratégie de lutte contre le commerce illégal. Pour nous, il est important que les pays fassent un rapport à ce sujet pour permettre au comité permanent d'identifier les pays qui jouent un rôle clé dans le trafic de l'espèce et recommander des actions spécifiques pour remédier aux problèmes. Nous pensons que cela permettra d'avoir un aperçu clair du rôle de chaque pays dans le trafic des pangolins. Ainsi donc, nous pensons qu'on peut bien prendre en considération les recommandations faites par le secrétariat sur le document 71.2 dans le document 71.1 et accepter certaines d'entre elles. Et pourtant, mais pour certains, nous voyons que les amendements proposés dans le document 71.1 au paragraphe H et I de notre entendement peut ne pas être appropriés. Donc nous pensons qu'il faudrait qu'on se dise que le rapport proposé par le Royaume-Uni est assez clair de compréhension et ce rapport pourrait nous fournir, nous le pensons bien, des informations essentielles pour éclairer les délibérations du comité permanent. Donc c'est notre point de vue et en rapport avec notre sensibilité que nous avons sur cette espèce. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Burkina Faso. I see the United States, followed by Niger, United States. And before you go, United States, I'm going to have to close my list. I will try to take as many of you as possible, but I have a long list. United States.
Thank you, Chair. The U.S. is extremely concerned about the continued trafficking of pangolins, and we welcome these documents to strengthen the conservation of pangolins. For document 71.2, the United States supports the draft decisions and the amendments to Resolution COP 17.10. For document 71.1, including the changes from the Secretariat, we are similar to the UK's comments and to Burkina Faso's in noting we understand the concern about the burden of reporting, yet we also recognize pangolin's status as the world's most trafficked mammal. Therefore, some reporting is appropriate and essential. Specifically, we support the Secretariat's changes to the draft decisions, with the one exception mentioned by the UK, and we do not support the Secretariat's changes made to the draft resolution for the reporting note that we mentioned. We do have one exception to that in Resolution Operative Paragraph 11A. We do support the Secretariat's change. We do support the Secretariat's change because it is reasonable to have the Secretariat report on pangolins at each conference of the parties rather than more frequently. We also support the renewal of Decision 18.238. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States. I see Niger, followed by Israel.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Le Niger remercie le secrétariat de la CITES pour le document 71.2 COP19 soumis et présenté par le Royaume-Uni. Les révisions proposées, Rev COP 1710 et les textes de décision associés est essentiel pour créer une base à utiliser pour lutter de manière significative contre le commerce illégal important et en cours du pangolin et de ses parties et produits. L'inscription à l'annexe 1 et de tous les pangolins convenus lors de la COP 17 a été un développement important pour la conservation mondiale des pangolins et le contrôle du trafic illicite d'espèces, mais compte tenu des données sur les saisies, il est clair que des activités doivent être faites davantage pour améliorer l'application, renforcer la gestion des stocks, encourager la fermeture des marchés nationaux de pangolins qui contribuent au commerce illicite des pangolins et demander des rapports supplémentaires aux parties de l'aide de répartition, de transit et de consommateurs de pangolins pour continuer à surveiller le respect de la résolution et des décisions. Nous soutenons ce document et remercions le Royaume-Uni pour son leadership sur la question et avoir soumis le document 71.2 à l'examen des parties. Nous sommes également d'accord avec le Royaume-Uni sur les recommandations faites par le secrétariat qui sont acceptables et celles-là qui devraient être rejetées pour garantir l'intégrité des révisions les plus significatives des tests de résolution et décision. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Niger. Israel, followed by India.
Thank you, Chair. we firmly support the original UK version. The difference is essentially a matter of reporting. We appreciate the greater reporting requirements of the UK version will likely contribute to efforts to suppress illegal trade in our planet's most trafficked mammal. Well, thus, we'll stick with the original UK version. Thank you.
Thank you. Israel, India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. India had reported on illegal poaching of trade of pangolins in its response to the questionnaire circulated by the Secretariat. We had highlighted that the major threat to pangolins in India is poaching for international trade, fueled by demand from outside the country. The draft decisions proposed in Annex 1 of the Standing Committee's document, unfortunately, do not address this important subject of demand for pangolins parts and derivatives. Many of the draft decisions appears to solely target improving the quality of information available, such as increasing species identification in the seizures and conversion of the seized scales to animals. While this is welcome, it does not address the root cause of the problem. It is clear that the large quantities of pangolin scales seized over the last decade represent a huge number of animals and an unsustainable offtake of these species. We therefore welcome and support many of the amendments to the Resolution 17.10 proposed by the United Kingdom in Annex 1 to its document, CoP19, Doc 17.2, particularly the amendments addressing demand of the pangolin products, closure of legal domestic markets contributing to illegal trade, and removal of the references to the pangolin products in the official's pharmacopoeia. However, we would caution against placing unrealistic reporting obligations on range states. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, India. So I'm going to take several more parties. I have a list that is a little bit too long for me to take, and I think we've had some helpful discussions. I can see some shared views coalescing here. So I will take Gabon. Gabon, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Gabon tient à remercier le Royaume-Uni d'avoir soumis ce document et souhaite exprimer son soutien au document 71.2 ainsi qu'aux amendements suggérés à la décision 17.10. Malgré son inscription à l'annexe 1, le pangolin, d'une manière générale, à travers toutes les espèces, continue d'être le mammifère le plus trafiqué au monde. D'autres espèces qui font l'objet de discussions permanentes lors des réunions de la CITES, telles que les grands félins d'Asie et les éléphants d'Afrique, ont des décisions similaires qui appellent à la fermeture des marchés intérieurs susceptibles de contribuer au braconnage et au trafic des espèces. Il est clair que les pangolins nécessitent un niveau similaire de préoccupation, d'attention et d'action. Par conséquent, l'exigence de déclaration des marchés nationaux des pangolins et la directive au comité permanent de fournir des recommandations pour les parties de l'aire de répartition, de transit et de consommation contribuant au commerce illicite des pangolins doivent être conservées. Le Gabon soutient le document 71.2 tel qu'il a été soumis et révisé par le Royaume-Uni. Nous soutenons également la proposition des États-Unis pour la soumission des rapports à chaque conférence des parties. Nous pensons que cette proposition des USA est très pertinente. Ainsi, nous soutenons que cette proposition soit prise tel un amendement à l'intérieur de ce document. Nous appelons toutes les parties ici présentes à soutenir ces recommandations. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Gabon. I see Thailand, followed by Botswana. Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thailand agrees to the comments made by Secretariat to consider the draft decisions that were consolidated from document 71.1 and 71.2 and amended by Secretariat as it is for consideration. Thailand consideration, therefore, will be specifically on the draft decisions and the LESCON 1710 amended by the Secretariat presented in the document 71.1. First of all, Thailand has no objection to retain the decision 18.238 and 18.239 as recommended in the document 71.1, page 3. Thailand also agrees to adopt decision 19AA, 19BB, 19CC, 19DD, and 19FF as amended by the Secretariat. Regarding the RESCON 1710 amended by the Secretariat presented in this document from page 5 to 8, Thailand would like to draw your attention to the last paragraph of page 6 and first paragraph of page 7 of the present document. Thailand is of the opinion that the measures stated in the amended RESCON 17.10 require a large number of efforts and they are budget consumption. Also, the availability of technical aspects are also required, and the national laws and regulations might not allow to make such measure possible. Therefore, Thailand would like to suggest some changes to make the required measure implementation by relevant parties possible. Thailand suggests for paragraph B on page 6 to add phase where possible at the end of the sentence. And for the paragraph C on page 7, we would like to add phase where feasible and allowed by the national legislation at the end of the sentence. I submit, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Thailand. I will take, at this point in time, 2 more parties. So I will take Kenya, followed by China. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, in compliance with decision 18.238 and 18.239, Kenya is in the process of assessing and developing in situ conservation and management plans for pangolins. It is also trying to address the illegal trade in pangolins through a multi-agency approach and national awareness program. Madam Chair, in this regard, we feel that adopting the full suite of recommendations contained in 71.22, which in our view also includes some recommendation in 71.1, they will be more appropriate to try and address the current threats to pangolin trade. We also want to support the amendments that has been proposed by the United Kingdom that provides for amendments to Resolution 17.10, as that will also contribute towards the conservation and management of pangolins. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Kenya. And Botswana, I did say I would give you the floor, and then I skipped you accidentally. So Botswana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for the floor. The listing of pangolins in Appendix 1 at COP 17 was an attempt at curbing trafficking. However, there's increasing trade, illegal trade, shows that range, transit, and consumer states need to do more to effectively address the many threats to pangolins, particularly illegal trade. Chair, the proposed revisions to ResConf 1710 and the pangolin text as approved at the 17th Standing Committee do seem to suggest that they could strengthen global efforts to improve conservation and management of pangolins, as well as address illegal trade. Botswana supports the Secretariat amendments to those resolutions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Botswana. And China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are many ways to conserve and regulate trade of pangolins. China does not believe it is necessary to close all legal markets just for fear of stimulating illegal trade. Indeed, when well managed and controlled, we believe that domestic markets do not contribute to or stimulate illegal trade. On the contrary, they can take pressure off wild populations when well regulated. More importantly, we believe measures should focus on habitat protection and strengthen conservation efforts of wild populations. Madam Chair, the management and security of domestic stockpiles and control of domestic markets are clearly internal affairs beyond the legal mandate of CITES. Any action by CITES clearly infringe on national sovereignty and will not be entertained by China. China agrees with the views expressed by the Secretariat that the various proposed reporting requirements will place an additional burden on the parties and the Secretariat. Further, and more important, they exceed the reporting requirements contained in paragraph 7 of Article 8 of the Convention. Finally, Madam Chair, we are in general agreement with the Secretariat's comments with respect to the proposed inclusion of paragraph 1, little d, paragraph 3, and paragraph 4 of ResConf 1710. The suggested edits by the Secretariat are very pertinent, and we support these deletions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, China. If you can just give me a moment while I confer based on our discussion so far. So I do want to take one or two observers before I wrap up. So Technicians, if you could clear my party list, I always apologise for not being able to take all of you, but it is my responsibility to keep us moving. Japan, I have you requesting the floor. I have asked for observers. Do you need to take the floor?
Yes, Madam Chair. Japan was requesting to make intervention before you mentioned to open the floors for the observers.
I understand that, Japan. I had quite a number of parties requesting the floor, and unfortunately I can't take all of you as much as I would like to. So I will be taking observers with the indulgence of parties, please. So I will take IUCN, followed by traffic. Thank you.
It's all good. Do I have to push it? Push it, yeah. Thank you, Chair. We are making this intervention on behalf of the IUCN and Zoological Society of London. We welcome the ongoing attention to the conservation of pangolins by the parties, and we are largely in agreement with the decisions proposed by the Standing Committee and with the amendments to Res Comp 1710 proposed in Docs 71.1 and 71.2. In particular, the IUCN highly encourages range states that have not yet done so to implement in situ conservation measures as directed by Decision 18.238, and we thank parties that have thus far contributed to Decision 18.239. We note the recommendations from the CITES Secretariat related to Draft Decision 19.cc, suggesting that the proposed text on reporting obligations be removed from Res Comp 1710. Such data, especially on legal and illegal trade and stockpiles, is critical to evidence-based decision-making for pangolin conservation, and we suggest maintaining it in the operative part of Res Comp 1710. We would like to encourage all parties implementing Res Comp 1710, as revised, to also consider Res Comp 16.6 on CITES and livelihoods regarding the engagement of rural communities in combating illegal trade of wildlife, and to incentivize and empower indigenous peoples and local communities to conserve pangolins, including by recognizing their rights and knowledge to sustainably manage pangolins and protect them from illegal wildlife trade. IUCN and the Zoological Society of London are ready to continue offering our support to parties, ensuring the effective and holistic implementation of Res Comp 1710. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, IUCN. Traffic, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making this intervention on behalf of Traffic and WWF. We're very pleased to see the continued attention being given to address pangolin trafficking-related matters. However, the overall progress made since CoP18 to address illegal trade in pangolins has been disappointing, including poor reporting and responses from parties. While the draft decisions put forward in Doc 71.1 highlight some important elements, it fails to reflect the urgency of the wide-ranging challenges to pangolin conservation and management. We are pleased the draft decisions address specific priorities such as stockpile management, which is paramount given the hundreds of tons of pangolins and parts that have been confiscated in the recent decade. However, decisions focusing on identification materials and training alone are insufficient to reverse the decline from trade pressures which persist. For example, traffic analysis shows more than 300 tons of pangolins and their parts were seized just in Asia from 2015 to 2021, where close to 80% were scales, mostly from African species. We therefore warmly welcome Doc 17.2 as outlined by the UK, which we feel more fittingly emphasizes the urgency needed for parties and non-parties to effectively demonstrate meaningful action to address illegal pangolin trade. Given the poor reporting progress, we also hope to see improved systems or reporting mechanisms to encourage more and timely and complete reporting by parties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Traffic. For my final observer, I'm again sorry I can't take you all. IWMC, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a very brief intervention to remind parties that stockpile issues are also a matter of national enforcement and therefore outside the scope of CITES. Thank you.
Thank you, IWMC. So if you will give me a moment to confer with the Secretariat, you've given me a little bit of a task here to come to all of the sub-paragraphs, but I will do my best. I will be back with you shortly. Okay, I'm going to attempt this. I will start with the draft decisions because I think that that's a little bit more straightforward. So when the UK introduced their document, they acknowledged the consolidated and amended decisions from the Secretariat, which are in the Secretariat's comments on document 71.1. With the exception of the Secretariat's amendment on decision 19GG, specifically little paragraph C, which they disagree with the Secretariat on deleting, and they would like to maintain 19GG little c. Through our discussions, I've heard a lot of support for those consolidated amended decisions and a lot of support for the UK's intervention. So my proposal on the draft decisions in document 71.1 and 71.2 are that we agree to the decisions as amended by the Secretariat with the exception of the deletion of 19GG little c. That's the simple bit. Turning to the amendments to the draft amendments to the resolution 1710 presented by the United Kingdom in 71.2. I've heard mostly support for the UK's amendments and mostly disagreement with the Secretariat's amendments, though some disagreement on that. I have heard a few small additional amendments on top of the amendments proposed by the United Kingdom that I will run through now. So, and I'm looking at document 71.2. So on paragraph 1B, we had a proposal by Thailand to add at the end of the paragraph where possible. And similarly to paragraph C, at the end of the paragraph, where possible and allowed by national legislation, which I think that we can accept. We had paragraph 11 that the US proposed to adopt the recommendation of the Secretariat, the amendments proposed by the Secretariat to paragraph 11A. Did not hear any opposition to that. I heard in the UK's opening intervention on document 71.2 that they can accept the Secretariat's amendments to paragraph 1 little e and 1 little g. I think I got that right, United Kingdom, thank you. And so I think we've had some other proposed amendments, but that I think represents the general views of parties in this discussion. It's complicated to follow, I know, but I hope I've been clear. Thank you very much for all your clear interventions that have helped me achieve that. And just turning back to document 71.1, there is also a recommendation from the Secretariat to delete decisions 18.240, 18.241, 18.242 and 18.243 as they are either implemented or incorporated into the new decisions. I have one observer requesting the floor. But that's the conclusion I have made based on our discussions today. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since there are there are still some parties fail to make their intervention on this issue. And we do find the recommendations by the Secretariat, they have a lot of merit on it. And so we would like to suggest that is it possible to open a working group to let more parties express their opinions on this issue, especially there are many complicated amendments in this resolution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, China. Thank you, China. I had hoped that we would not need to get to a working group because I think we have had some discussion here. I didn't see anyone else calling for a working group. I understand that it is complicated, but I think we have done a very good job this afternoon of being clear about what we're referring to, and I hope I have summed up our discussions. So unless there is other disagreement. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But I agree what China mentioned, that there were parties who wanted to make interventions. And if you justify that many parties supported the document 71.2, but it's not so clear because there are some parties who were unable to make interventions. So I'd like to seek for your permission to make interventions for those parties who couldn't make intervention although they requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. So I would like to offer a compromise. I think this might address party concerns. So I'm noting that there are complexities, and I'm also noting that not everyone got to take the floor. I've said it several times, and I appreciate everyone wanting to take the floor, but we cannot have everyone take the floor on every single item. What we propose to do is compile an in-session document, a COM document, with the amendments that I've summed up here. Just on the amendments that I've summed up on the resolution, I think we can accept my summary on the draft decisions. So I would like to propose that as a way forward so we can move on. We'll propose a ComDoc, which hopefully will be available tomorrow, with the amendments that we can then reflect upon once we're prepared to take that. So I have one party asking to take the floor. I will take comments on my suggested compromise way forward, noting that China and Japan have requested some more time to consider and another opportunity to come back to this item. So I will take Senegal followed by Vietnam, commenting specifically on my proposal that we produce a ComDoc on the proposed amendments to resolution COP 17.10. Senegal and then Vietnam. Senegal.
Merci Madame pour la souplesse parce que ce qui est à terme de votre gestion de ce dossier, je crois que donner plus de parole aux partis, vous éviterez d'aller, contrairement à ce que suggéré la Chine, à un groupe de travail. Ce document a été bien élaboré et le Sénégal est de ces pays qui soutiennent la proposition du Royaume-Uni et les recommandations du secrétariat. Merci.
Vietnam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We highly appreciate the draft amendment of resolution number 17.10 submitted by United Kingdom. However, we think that the information provided in the document number 71.2 is not enough information. I think that the member party should report and gather information about the implementation of resolution number 17.10 before we can amend the resolution, because for example here, based on the information at the document number 71.2 that identify Vietnam and some other countries.
I'm sorry to interrupt Vietnam. I was happy to give you some time, but I did invite comments on the proposed way forward rather than on the document at this point in time, because I've offered a way forward which will give parties another opportunity to look at the status of our discussions at this point in time, and we will discuss it again. So Vietnam, you did have a minute to do that.
I suggest that we need more information submitted by a member party before we thinking about the amend the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Vietnam. So I think we will arrange to publish the ComDoc, and then we will come back to these discussions. I think that is the way forward. But what I would like to propose, just for clarity, is that we agree the draft decisions as amended by the Secretariat, with the addition of decision 19GG paragraph c, and that we agree the deletion of the decisions 18.240 through 243 as I read out earlier, and the ComDoc will go to the amendments to the resolution. So I would like to move on to document 73. We have two documents on jaguars to discuss this afternoon. So we have 73.1 report of the Standing Committee, and then we have 73.2 proposed amendments to the draft decisions on jaguars agreed at SC 74. Again, I would like to take these two documents together. There are some significant similarities. So I will have the Chair of the Standing Committee introduce document 73.1, and then I will turn to one of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, or Peru. I hope you are organised as to whom, to introduce document 73.2. So on 73.1, I'd like to invite the Chair of the Standing Committee to introduce the document. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So CoP19 Doc 73.1 was submitted by the Standing Committee and reports on activities related to decisions 18.251 to 18.253 on jaguars. During the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee, the Secretariat informed the committee that the study on illegal trade in jaguars was finalized and available as Annex 2 to a document submitted to the committee. The study was financed by Switzerland. So the Standing Committee considered the study on illegal trade in jaguars, as well as the Secretariat's report and recommendations at its 74th meeting. It noted the main findings and conclusions of the study and agreed to submit draft decisions on jaguars, which are contained in Annex 1 to the present document. The Conference of the Parties is thus invited to adopt the draft decisions on jaguars in Annex 1 of the document. And I will also draw attention that this concludes and is meant to replace decisions 18.251 to 18.253. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Standing Committee. Moving to document 73.2, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, or Peru. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Costa Rica hace esta intervención en nombre de Argentina, Guatemala, Cuba, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Uruguay, Venezuela, Honduras, Belice, Panamá, República Dominicana, El Salvador, Paraguay, Brasil, Bolivia, Chile y México, países que estamos comprometidos en su conservación. La recuperación de nuestros bosques ha sido fundamental para asegurar el futuro del jaguar y su conectividad a lo largo de nuestro territorio y a través de las fronteras, protegiéndolo ante sus crecientes amenazas, incluyendo el comercio ilegal de sus partes y derivados. Entendiendo la importancia del jaguar para la integridad y el balance de los ecosistemas y su rol cultural en nuestros países, hemos promovido la conservación de la especie y su posicionamiento como especie emblemática de las Américas, y hemos llevado este mensaje desde el territorio hasta las más altas plataformas internacionales, como se trata en este caso de esta distinguida convención, la Convención de Diversidad Biológica y la Convención de Especies Migratorias. A nuestros esfuerzos se han sumado múltiples organismos internacionales, la sociedad civil, las comunidades que coexisten con la especie. Hoy en día contamos con una bonanza de esfuerzos por conservar el jaguar. Esta bonanza se manifiesta en los múltiples logros alcanzados en los últimos años, incluyendo la creación de la Ruta del Jaguar 2030 en el 2018, el reconocimiento al jaguar como la especie emblemática de las Américas en la Declaración de Lima en el 2019, la inclusión del jaguar en los apéndices 1 y 2 de la Convención de Especies Migratorias y, por supuesto, el trabajo de la CITES, su Secretaría, Comité Permanente y sus partes por esclarecer el comercio ilegal de jaguar en nuestra región a través del estudio comisionado por la Secretaría en las decisiones 18.251 a 18.253 y los proyectos de decisión que hoy se nos presentan para definir nuestra respuesta conjunta ante esta amenaza. Reconociendo el comercio ilegal como una amenaza seria para el jaguar, los países listados acogemos las recomendaciones para las partes en el proyecto de decisión 19AA y a la Secretaría la decisión 19B del anexo del documento 73.1, que buscan, entre otras cosas, fortalecer las capacidades para detectar, monitorear y eliminar el comercio ilegal de jaguar, al mismo tiempo que promueven la conservación de los hábitats y corredores, financiamiento sostenible, la cooperación regional. Invitamos a las demás partes en el rango de distribución del jaguar a hacer lo mismo y aumentar la ambición y cooperación para el alcance de estas metas. Hacemos un llamado a apoyar los proyectos de decisión 19CC, 19DD, dirigidos a la Secretaría, al Comité Permanente y sus enmiendas previstas en el anexo del documento 73.2, propuestas por Costa Rica, El Salvador, México y Perú, con relación a la integración de los múltiples esfuerzos de conservación del jaguar a través de la organización de una reunión de estados del rango con el fin de evaluar las propuestas para crear un sistema de monitoreo del comercio ilegal de jaguares y otras amenazas a largo plazo, y para establecer una plataforma intergubernamental para planificar la conservación del jaguar a nivel continental. Asimismo, avalamos la propuesta de enmienda propuesta por la Secretaría a las decisiones 19BB y 19EE. También apoyamos la conformación de un grupo de trabajo interseccional para evaluar la creación de una resolución sobre el jaguar y un taller presencial, así como se presenta en la decisión 19BB. Una resolución no solo nos ayudaría a guiar a largo plazo la operatividad de un sistema de información y monitoreo sobre el comercio ilegal del jaguar, sino también para facilitar la conformación de acuerdos intergubernamentales para la conservación de la especie, ampliando el alcance geográfico, la formalidad, la coordinación entre las CITES, CMS y la Ruta del Jaguar 2030 y otras iniciativas a nivel regional y nacional. El jaguar nos une a todos y esperamos que con estas decisiones, la coordinación y colaboración podamos garantizar no solo la supervivencia de la especie a largo plazo, sino también el alcance de nuestras metas sociales, climáticas y de biodiversidad. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Costa Rica. So Costa Rica and their co-proponents have proposed amendments to the Standing Committee's draft decisions in their document, specifically amending adding new paragraph B of draft decision 19CC, proposing a new paragraph decision 19DD, paragraphs A through D, and then amending what was the Standing Committee's decision 19DD to make it EE with amendments. So we would invite comments on both proposals, noting that they are similar with the additions and amendments proposed by Costa Rica and their co-proponents. So I'll open the floor for parties. I see Suriname, followed by Bolivia. Suriname, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, on behalf of Suriname, I would like to extend our condolences and prayers to the people of Indonesia in regards to the tragic earthquake that happened today. Suriname thanks the Secretariat and the proponent of the Jaguar documents. As part of the Guyana Shield, Suriname's tropical rainforest has a rich biodiversity and is a range trait of jaguars. Suriname has a long tradition in preserving forests and wildlife. Our Game Act and Nature Conservation Acts are dated from 1954. The Panthera onca is by law a protected species since 2002 in Suriname. Recognizing the concern of illegal trade of jaguar and jaguar parts, Suriname is committed to the protection of the jaguars and can play an important role here in the total range. In this context, a number of projects have been recently carried out in collaboration with various national and international institutes and NGOs, such as IUCN Netherlands, Conservation International Suriname, WWF Guyana, IFO, Pantera, Freeland Brazil, and UNODC, to monitor the wild population of jaguar and other felines and to increase awareness and capacity building among the investigative services and judicial authorities. Some of the activities and outcome of this regard are: Suriname is now a member of the South American Wildlife Enforcement Network, SUTWEN. Suriname prepared draft national jaguar monitoring strategy, developed Jaguar Roadmap 2030, developed an identification of feline parts guide, established a national jaguar working group, and with support from the Bio-Amazon project and the GGCA project, we also started a new training of aspirant game wardens to strengthen the enforcement of wildlife and nature conservation management. Within the Amazon Sustainable Landscape Project, ASL2, support is also given for the conservation of jaguars in Suriname. In that order, Suriname supports the proposal of Costa Rica and co-proponent and the recommendation of the Secretariat to draft decision on jaguars agreed as SE 74, CoP19 Doc 73.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Suriname. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Como indicó Costa Rica, a nombre de diferentes partes, el jaguar es una especie emblemática de las Américas, tanto por su importancia en el mantenimiento de los paisajes naturales y el mantenimiento de la funcionalidad e integridad de los ecosistemas, así como por ser un componente importante de algunas culturas indígenas durante siglos. En la última década, en diferentes países de la distribución natural de este felino, como en Bolivia, empezó a presentar un incremento fuerte del tráfico de sus partes y derivados, principalmente colmillos, tendencias que están relacionadas en diferente grado a la situación en algunos felinos en Asia. Bajo este contexto resumido, alentamos a las partes a apoyar a todas las acciones necesarias en beneficio de la conservación y protección de esta especie emblemática y ecológicamente clave dentro de la región neotropical. En lo referente al anexo 1 del documento 7.31 se presentan las siguientes sugerencias. En el inciso 19AA, inciso H, se sugiere completar después de la palabra bandera el término clave, debido a que se debe remarcar la importancia ecológica de esta especie en el mantenimiento de la integridad de los ecosistemas en la región. En el inciso 19B, inciso B, aclarar la temporalidad de cómo se entiende a largo plazo. En ese sentido, se sugiere tener un criterio cuantitativo. También, al final de este párrafo, se sugiere mantener lo presentado en el contenido subrayado en las observaciones de la Secretaría, texto que hace referencia a, incluyendo la participación de las comunidades locales en la supervisión y los enfoques de género, según proceda, que en el documento revisado no se encuentra en la versión final del anexo 1. Así también, sobre este párrafo, complementar el término pueblos indígenas después de comunidades locales. Gracias.
Thank you, Bolivia. I see Brazil, followed by Panama.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brazil thanks the Standing Committee for preparing document 73.1. We also thank Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, and Peru for submitting document 73.2. We would like to echo the words pronounced by Costa Rica. Brazil is the country with the largest population of jaguars, or onça pintada, as we call these animals. Its state estimated that around 55,000 jaguars exist in the Brazilian territory. Although available data indicates that illegal trade in jaguar parts is not significant in Brazil, it's beyond question that international trade of parts and living animals is one of the greatest drivers of poaching. Therefore, the enforcement of CITES provisions in these cases is essential to help us in the efforts to combat poachers and consequently to make progress toward the conservation of the species, which currently is classified as vulnerable in national level. Brazil is implementing the first cycle of the National Action Plan for Conservation of Big Cats, which aims to reduce the vulnerability of the onça pintada as well the onça parda in 5 years. Cooperation with other range states is also a priority for Brazil, and we are fully committed to the implementation of the Jaguar 2030 roadmap. The proposed meeting of Jaguar range states will certainly be an excellent opportunity for us to share experiences and to identify possibilities of cooperations, joint actions, and resource mobilization in jaguar conservation. As we stated at the 740 meeting of the Standing Committee, with the support of donor countries and from the Secretariat, Brazil will be honored to host the meeting. Brazil, therefore, supports the adoption of the draft decisions proposed in document 73.1 with the amendments proposed in document 73.2. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Brazil. And Panama, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, Presidenta. Panamá posee algunos de los mejores hábitats del continente americano para el jaguar, una especie icónica y carismática de nuestros bosques tropicales. En ese sentido, contamos con más de 2 décadas de trabajo de investigación científica, educación y difusión, con el apoyo de varias instancias de gobierno, empresas privadas, ONG, apoyos internacionales y otros, para lo que hoy día contamos con experiencia y base técnica para apoyar las decisiones y proyectos relacionados con los jaguares y mamíferos grandes en Panamá y en toda su área de distribución. Panamá es el segundo país en promover y realizar un censo nacional del jaguar y otras especies para obtener información ecológica y así poder tomar decisiones en todos los niveles, además de contar con el monitoreo de jaguares y sus presas más largo en el país, con más de 10 años en el área del Parque Nacional Darién. También trabajamos para abordar el conflicto entre los seres humanos y el jaguar y otras condiciones que se vinculan con comercio ilegal de jaguares de manera incidental o directa. Sin embargo, estos esfuerzos locales se pueden ver diezmados por la creciente amenaza hacia la especie por la caza furtiva y el comercio ilegal asociado, incluyendo el incremento en la presión por la utilización del jaguar en Latinoamérica que se vincula con el comercio de grandes felinos asiáticos. Esta CITES nos brinda una oportunidad para avanzar en acciones más enérgicas para abordar estas amenazas. Es por esto que instamos a las partes a adoptar las decisiones del documento 73.2 con las modificaciones propuestas por la Secretaría relacionada al comercio ilegal de jaguares, el control de la demanda en los principales mercados que impulsan este comercio que pone en peligro a las especies de felinos silvestres, así como los mayores esfuerzos de cooperación a nivel regional. Debemos tener en cuenta que Mesoamérica es angosta y con un territorio menor que Suramérica. Por estas y otras razones, debemos tener en cuenta que los jaguares en los países mesoamericanos están en una categoría de peligro o en algunas áreas peligro crítico. Para Panamá, el jaguar es un ícono de gran importancia a nivel cultural y nacional. Por tal razón, estamos listos para contribuir a fortalecer la coordinación entre las secretarías del CITES y la Secretaría de la CMS para promover la colaboración en la conservación de los felinos silvestres. Panamá apoya la propuesta de Costa Rica y demás países del área de distribución del jaguar. Gracias.
Thank you, Panama. United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate these documents and support adoption of the draft decisions included in Annex 1 to document 73.2 with the amendments suggested by our colleague from Bolivia. We do have one question that we think warrants some additional discussion, and it relates to an issue that the Secretariat has raised in its comments concerning the instruction for the Standing Committee to develop a program of work to guide implementation of these decisions. It's found in paragraph A of draft decision 19.dd. And we note that the Secretariat in its comments has indicated that it's unclear how that program of work could facilitate the implementation of these draft decisions. And we would welcome some clarification, perhaps from the proponents, on what they are seeking here, so that we can craft a clear instruction to the Standing Committee to help ensure that this work is carried forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, United States. The United States was the last party seeking to take the floor, so I wonder if we can take the US's question here, Costa Rica, or any of the other proponents who wish to respond to the question from the United States, which I understand picks up on the Secretariat's comment on draft decision 19DD paragraph little a. I'll give you the floor if you would like. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Podemos, para agilizar un poco la agenda y ganar tiempo, podríamos revisarlo con lo que puntualmente Estados Unidos está hablando y recoger tal vez lo que Bolivia propone, y así podríamos nosotros presentar esa inclusión, valorándolo, y así no invertiríamos de pronto tiempo en discutir más, porque realmente son mínimos los detalles.
So Costa Rica, just so that I'm clear and everyone is clear, you would accept the suggestion from the Secretariat to delete 19DD paragraph little a based on the question from the United States, just so we're all clear. Costa Rica.
Aprobamos lo que Bolivia está proponiendo y queremos revisar con más detalle lo que está anulándose de parte de la Secretaría.
So I have picked up Bolivia's suggestion in decision 19BB paragraph B, which is reflected in the Secretariat's comments, at least in 73.1, possibly also in 73.2. Yes, also in 73.2. So I've noted support for the amendment that Bolivia has proposed. Costa Rica, I note that you would lack a moment with the suggestion, with the question from the United States based on the suggestion of the Secretary in their comments. So while you do that, well, Costa Rica, you're welcome to take the floor again.
Sí, lo voy a revisar con más calma, puede avanzar.
Thank you, Costa Rica, and hopefully a brief period of time to do that is sufficient, because I will open the floor to observers to comment while Costa Rica is considering that question from the United States. So I have CMS followed by Pantera. CMS.
Thank you, Chair. Jaguar is one of the species included in the CMS CITES Joint Work Program, and therefore the CMS Secretariat is happy to report on its activities related to this species. Following the listing of jaguar on CMS Appendices 1 and 2 by CMS CoP19 in 2020, the Secretariat supported Argentina, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay upon the request of the government of Costa Rica in understanding their obligations related to the listings. As a consequence of the Appendix 2 listing under CMS, CMS range state parties of jaguar are obliged to engage in international cooperation to conserve the species, and were presented with all the options currently available for international cooperation under CMS. They concluded that, based on the example of the joint CITES-CMS African Carnivores Initiative, they would like to see very close cooperation between CMS and CITES in agreeing on further conservation measures. At the same time, the CMS Secretariat became a member of the UNDP-led Jaguar 2030 Roadmap Coordination Committee. Given the multiple threats faced by the jaguar, ranging from habitat loss and fragmentation to human-wildlife conflict and illegal trade, we believe that a joint approach in conserving the species is most appropriate. The complementary work of CMS and CITES at the policy level and the implementation work undertaken by members of the Coordination Committee have the potential to make a difference to the conservation status of jaguar. The CMS Secretariat thus welcomes the decisions proposed in the document before us, calling for the alignment of conservation actions and the organization of a meeting by the CITES Secretariat in close cooperation with the CMS Secretariat and the 2030 Roadmap Committee. The Secretariat also welcomes the establishment of a working group under the Standing Committee of CITES, as proposed by Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, and Peru, to explore the merits of a dedicated resolution on jaguar under CITES and support in the preparation of the proposed meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, CMS. Pantera, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This statement is on behalf of the Jaguar 2030 Roadmap Coordination Committee members, which include Costa Rica, UNDP, UNEP, UNODC, Panthera, WCS, and WWF. The CITES and CMS secretariats are also represented on the committee. We appreciate the interventions by Bolivia, Brazil, Costa Rica, Panama, Suriname, and the United States, and we thank Brazil for their generous offer to host a range state meeting next year. The Jaguar 2030 Committee commends the progress made since COP18 on decisions 18.251 to 18.253 and the collaborative effort to complete the study on illegal trade in jaguars. In light of the findings, we support adoption of the draft decisions as amended by the Secretariat in COP19 Doc 73.2, paragraph H, and their call for parties to urgently implement measures to eliminate jaguar poaching and trafficking, including online trade. We welcome the proposal in COP19 Doc 73.2 for an intersessional standing committee working group to discuss a resolution on jaguars. We agree that this group should consider the outcomes of the range state meeting to be held next year in Brazil, where the parties will explore their options for an intergovernmental platform on jaguar conservation, among other priorities. The committee stands ready to support range states in developing a robust, financially sustainable program of work to implement the Jaguar 2030 roadmap in alignment with their commitments under CITES, CMS, and other MEAs. As an umbrella species, jaguars are measurable indicators of biodiversity. Their recovery can help tell the story of and gain lasting support for Latin America's ambitious sustainable development agenda. In addition, the jaguar is a powerful cultural symbol for the peoples across its range. We urge parties at this, the COP of the Americas, to support all necessary actions to benefit the conservation of this emblematic and ecologically important species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Panthera. I did want to come back to Costa Rica to see if that was enough time to reflect upon the question from the United States, because I think otherwise we're ready to sum up. Costa Rica, are you in a position to comment?
Bueno, nosotros podemos acoger la recomendación de la Secretaría en cuanto a este programa de trabajo y le aceptamos la recomendación.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Thank you, everyone. So in summing up, I think that the committee agrees to the draft decisions as outlined in COP19 document 73.2, Annex 1, with the amendments proposed by Bolivia and supported by the United States and accepted by Costa Rica, which is to 19AA, paragraph H, we'll add due to its ecological significance at the end of that paragraph. Bolivia has also suggested, with the support of the US and the agreement by Costa Rica, to the amendment proposed by the Secretariat to 19BB, paragraph little b, which goes to the including engagement of. Bolivia also proposed that we include engagement of Indigenous people and local communities, so that is an addition to the Secretariat's amendment. So the end of decision 19BB, paragraph little b, would include the engagement of Indigenous peoples and local communities in the monitoring and gender-based approaches as appropriate. We have heard from Costa Rica that they are prepared to accept the suggestion of the Secretariat in regard to draft decision 19DD to delete paragraph little a, the one that refers to the work program. Thank you, Costa Rica. So that's my conclusion based on our discussions, and then I will also note that the chair of the standing committee has reminded us that we can also delete decisions 18.251 to 18.253. So with that, I think we agree on those points. Thank you, everyone. So we will move on to our next item for consideration. It's item 69 on seahorses, hippocampus species. Again, we have two documents, and I would like to take them together. So I will have, so the first document, 69.1, is the report of the Standing Committee. And the second document, 69.2, next steps towards successful implementation of Appendix 2 listing of seahorses. I will have one of the proponents introduce that document. I anticipate that you are organised, so we will turn first to 69.1, report of the Standing Committee. This document has been submitted by the Standing Committee, and I'd like to invite the Chair of the Standing Committee to introduce it. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm referring to CoP19, Doc 69.1, where the Standing Committee reports on decisions 18.228 to 18.233 on seahorses. So in the report, it is noted that the Secretariat published the notification requested, collated the responses, and they are available on the CITES website NDF database. I would also draw attention to paragraphs 7 and 8 of the report, which speak to funding support on studies and summaries of seahorse trade. However, there are activities under the COP18 decisions that were not completed or that are ongoing. As such, the Animals Committee, in their discussions, agreed to submit to the Standing Committee draft decisions for its consideration. The Standing Committee also noted that work was unfinished and thus agreed to submit to CoP19 draft decisions contained in Annex 1 to this document, which will allow the completion of the mandate previously given at COP18. So the Standing Committee invites the Conference of Parties to adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 1 of this document. And I will note this was intended to replace the existing decisions 18.228 to 18.233. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Standing Committee. So I will turn to the proponents for COP19 document 69.2 and invite one of the proponents to introduce the document, United States.
Thank you, Chair. The United States, along with Monaco, the Maldives, Nigeria, Peru, Senegal, Sri Lanka, Togo, and the United Kingdom, is pleased to present COP19 Doc 69.2, which is aimed at addressing the challenges that have hindered effective implementation of international trade in seahorses and promoting further conservation of these exceptional and magnificent species. The proposal to include seahorses in Appendix 1 was put forward by the United States at the 12th meeting of the Conference of Parties in Santiago, Chile in 2002, and for over a decade, the United States has worked diligently within CITES to ensure the international trade is legal and their use sustainable. The United States strongly supported decisions 18.228 to 18.233 on seahorses adopted at the 18th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, which was aimed at promoting conservation and improved implementation for these species. Since the listing of these species in CITES, great progress has been made to improve the monitoring of the international trade of seahorses with the cooperation of CITES parties to ensure the species conservation. Concern about the unsustainable trade in seahorses has also been addressed through the review of the significant trade process. However, although the inclusion of seahorses in CITES Appendix 2 appears to have reduced pressure of international trade in live animals on some wild populations, the United States and co-proponents of Doc 69.2 remain concerned about the large volumes of dried seahorses continually found illegally in international trade. The new draft decisions proposed in COP19 Doc 69.2 are crucial next steps in addressing the challenges that have hindered effective implementation of the regulation of international trade in seahorses. Building on the work that's been undertaken since COP18, the decisions call for the following key actions. Parties with ongoing illegal and/or unsustainable trade in dried seahorses should develop national or regional plans of action to ensure future trade complies with CITES provisions, and the Standing Committee should address the large volumes of illegal trade in seahorses. These decisions will maintain the momentum that through the next intersessional period on seahorse conservation efforts and the successful implementation of Appendix 2 for seahorses. We have taken note of the CITES Secretariat's recommendation that if CITES parties decide to adopt the decisions in Doc 69.2, the two sets of decisions in 69.1 and 69.2 should be merged, and reference to the Global Workshop and Draft Decision 19AA in Doc 69.1 would no longer be necessary. The United States supports the Secretariat's suggestions and has created an INF Document 52, which provides an explanation for Doc 69.2, merges the draft decisions in 69.1 and 69.2, and removes reference to the Global Workshop called for in Decision 19.AA of 69.1, as was suggested by the Secretariat. The new draft decisions will help ensure legal, sustainable trade in seahorses and will support parties in meeting their obligations under the Convention. We urge support for the adoption of the consolidated decision set forth in COP19 INF Document 52. Thank you.
So I will open the floor to parties to comment on these two documents, noting the introductions by the Chair of the Standing Committee and the United States. So I see Sri Lanka followed by Panama. Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sri Lanka supports document 69.2 as a co-proponent of the document. Madam Chair, it is indeed heartwarming to see the progress parties have been making in protecting seahorses, their habitats, and the livelihoods of fishers. Since CoP18 in Geneva, the research, investigations, and the stakeholder engagements have highlighted the scarcity of data, especially because they are mostly traded in dried forms, where identification is still very challenging. Hence, getting together to ensure the right information is in place is absolutely important for the management of seahorses. Therefore, we urge the parties to adopt the document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sri Lanka. Panama.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Panamá sabe que el apéndice 2 de CITES es una herramienta fundamental para avanzar en la conservación de la biodiversidad marina. Los caballitos de mar son un estudio de caso importante para comprender la implementación de CITES para los peces marinos. Estuvieron entre los primeros peces marinos agregados al apéndice 2 y son los únicos peces completamente marinos que han pasado por el proceso de revisión de comercio significativo. En este sentido, señora presidenta, Panamá da la bienvenida y apoya las decisiones del documento 69.2, ya que tienen como objetivo garantizar que el comercio de caballitos de mar sea sostenible, legal y rastreable, en el verdadero espíritu del apéndice 2. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Panama. I have Canada, followed by Togo. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Canada appreciates the draft set of decisions presented by the United States that attempts to merge the two set of draft decisions presented in documents 69.1 and 69.2. Canada supports in principle the proposed draft decisions as merged by the United States. However, would like to suggest a minor amendment to 19 DD little b directed to the Animals Committee. Our suggestion would be to remove the first 5 words of 19 DD little b in consultation with species experts. We would like to suggest a similar change to 19 EE little a and little b directed to the Standing Committee. Our suggestion would be to remove the first 5 words of 19 EE, little a, and little b that reads, in consultation with species experts. We would thus only retain this language in draft decision 19 DD, little a. It is Canada's opinion that it's the role of the Animals Committee to make recommendations to the parties. Similarly, it's the role of the Standing Committee to make recommendations to the Conference of Parties based on the report it receives from the Animals Committee. Canada does support 19 DD, little a, that includes, quote, in consultation with species experts, as this decision asks for the review of the analysis and results of activities and reports which rightly benefit from the input of species experts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canada. Togo, followed by the Maldives. Togo.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. L'étude de 2019 a noté la poursuite du commerce illégal et la nécessité de renforcer l'application des interdictions existantes. C'est pour cela que le Togo, en tant que co-auteur de cette proposition, soutient la proposition. Merci.
Thank you, Togo. Maldives, followed by India. Maldives.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maldives would like to thank the United States of America for their leadership, and we have joined USA and others as co-proponents of Doc 69.2. In recognizing the need to further the implementation efforts for the CITES Appendix 2 listed seahorse species to continue the momentum set with current efforts. As a co-sponsor, we would like to request all parties to support this decision document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Maldives. India, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At SC 74, India had raised concerns regarding implementation report produced by Project Seahorse in respect of India, especially the process by which it has been produced. We had requested that no part of the report in relation to India is used for the purpose of any future decisions, recommendations, or other action. Subsequent to SC 74, we had requested clarity from the Secretariat as to whether Project Seahorse has been commissioned by the Secretariat to conduct the study referred to in Decision 18.229C(i). We did not receive a response. Madam Chair, the main subject matter of the Project Seahorse report with respect to India concerns illegal harvesting and trade of seahorse in India and enforcement of India's national laws. This includes interviews with traders who claim to be trading illegally in seahorses. No actionable information regarding illegal harvesting or trade of seahorses has been provided to the Management Authority of India by the authors of the report. It is therefore difficult to verify or confirm any of the claims made in the report. A large portion of the report is based on the opinions of 10 anonymous sources. No consent has been obtained from India to conduct a study on illegal trade in the country, as is the convention for a CITES process. The report contains a recommendation that India remove its stricter domestic measures for seahorses. It is important to underscore here that seahorses, cygnathrids, are listed in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, thereby according them the highest degree of protection in the country. The hunting, trade, national and international, of seahorses is completely prohibited. Also, the adoption and retention of such a measure is a sovereign right accorded to parties by paragraph 1 of Article 14 of the Convention. The recommendations in CoP19 Doc 69.2 appear to have been drawn from the Project Seahorse reports. We do not support the draft decisions in this document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India. I will take Liberia, followed by Costa Rica. Liberia.
Thank you, Chair. Liberia would like to support the U.S. for decision taken to merge for the two decisions to merge this and conservation priority of the species, and Liberia stand as one of the range states of the seahorse. And I think that merging this decision will help us to plan better and for propounding a priority for setting the pace for better protection of this species. So Liberia welcome and support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Liberia. Costa Rica, followed by Japan. Costa Rica.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Costa Rica felicita a los autores de la propuesta. Es necesario y urgente tomar los pasos siguientes para la protección del caballito de mar en el apéndice 2. Entonces, apoyamos la propuesta e instamos a las demás partes a que aprueben la propuesta.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan is concerned about the illegal trade of the seahorse and watches the progress closely. Japan simply supports the comment by the Secretariat that doesn't recommend the adoption of the draft decisions as it is presented in Doc 69.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. I have a few more parties, so I will take Guinea-Bissau, followed by Nigeria. Guinea-Bissau.
Gracias, señora Presidente. Era simplesmente para decir que Guinea-Bissau apoia o documento COP19, DOC 69.2, e estamos muito agradecidos a los países proponentes. Gracias.
Thank you, Guinea-Bissau. So I will take Nigeria, followed by the European Union. Nigeria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nigeria also joined her voice to support USA on this document, and we also want to urge other parties to please support this proposal, as this will help us to, lead us to better manage the seahorses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nigeria, European Union, followed by Indonesia.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We would like to thank the Standing Committee and the proponents for preparation of documents 69.1 and 69.2. These documents are complementary, and we agree they should be merged into one set of draft decisions. With the view to more effectively implement the inclusion of seahorses in Appendix 2. In this case, it is important to retain the decision that seahorses are included in the proposed NDF workshop, as suggested in document 69.2. We would have liked also to include the decision on an expert workshop to discuss the implementation and enforcement of CITES for trade in the seahorses, as proposed in the document 69.1. But as we see support from range states to the proposed compromise text, we will not break the consensus on this. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Then I have Indonesia and then Peru. Indonesia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia supports the Secretariat's comment that document 69.2 is not to be adopted as a draft decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia and Peru.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Perú apoya la propuesta de decisión presentada por Estados Unidos debido a que el país también está preocupado por el comercio ilegal de caballito de mar y además permitirá adoptar medidas de manejo que logrará la conservación de esta especie. Gracias.
Thank you, Peru. Peru was the last party on my list, so I would like to open the floor to observers to join our discussion. So I will take IUCN, followed by ZSL, followed by Pet Advocacy Network. IUCN, you have the floor.
Keep talking. Thank you, Chair. Recent research by the IUCN Seahorse, Pipefish, and Sea Dragon Specialist Group, hosted by Project Seahorse, has revealed that the relatively small trade in live seahorses, the CITES Appendix 2 listing triggered a significant reduction in volumes and a notable transition to captive breeding. In contrast, we found that the vast dry trade in seahorses that largely provoked the Appendix 2 listing persists with worrying levels of illegal trade. Fishers in key source countries for the dry trade have reported continued declines of seahorse numbers despite increases in fishing effort, suggesting that current levels of dried exports are detrimental to wild populations. While our research identified challenges, consultations with CITES authorities and experts have revealed key opportunities for moving the dry trade towards sustainability and legality. Such research and consultations underpin the draft decisions in CoP19, Doc 69.2, which are complementary to those presented in CoP19, Doc 69.1. Taken together, these decisions will ensure CITES keeps moving toward full implementation of the convention with sustainable and legal seahorse trade. As ever, we stand ready with our technical expertise to support parties in addressing implementation challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, IUCN. ZSL.
Thank you, Chair. As a partner in Project Seahorse, ZSL welcomes the approach proposed by the US. Thanks largely to the work of our partners at UBC and the IUCN Specialist Group, seahorses are arguably the best researched marine taxa in the context of CITES and an excellent case study for many aspects of the convention. While CITES Appendix 2 provisions are largely being met for live seahorses, action is clearly needed to ensure the large volume of ongoing dried seahorse trade is both legal and sustainable. Finally, similar to many other aquatic species in trade, there is a need for improved national and regional coordination of export, transit, and import nations of seahorses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, ZSL. And the final observer requesting the floor is the Pet Advocacy Network. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are concerned that CITES is missing an opportunity to have an impact on the seahorse populations, as the total trade in seahorses is merely rounding error when compared with the number of specimens lost as bycatch. Wild seahorse populations are under pressure, and their decline does need to be addressed. We are concerned, however, that there is a tendency to see CITES as a standalone tool to reverse population declines in the species being considered for listing or uplisting. The truth is, CITES is one tool, but not always the best tool, and can actually be counterproductive. Indications are that the dried specimens in the trade are seldom actively targeted, but usually food fishers opportunistically exploiting specimens that are collected as bycatch. Specimens in the aquarium trade and the aquarium hobby now come almost exclusively from aquaculturing. This aquaculturing is, in fact, the best hope for reversing the declines of these species in the wild. Until CITES can offer food fishers a fishing method that reduces bycatch or promotes the reintroduction of specimens from aquaculture back into their native range, nothing will change with the decline of this species. We encourage parties to continue to work with observers and other organizations with an expertise to pursue programs that can have a concrete impact on the decline of these species and not view CITES as the silver bullet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Pet Advocacy Network. Thank you, everyone. So thank you for that discussion. I did want to give the Secretariat an opportunity to respond to the concerns raised by India. So I'll give the floor to the Secretariat before we continue to the rest of our discussions. Secretariat.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to respond to India's question. And firstly, I would like to apologise on behalf of the Secretariat if India had sent in an official question relating to this and did not receive an official response. So the first thing I want to do is apologise for that. The second thing is I would reiterate the point that we made at the SC74 in Lyon when I think the same question was asked. I would draw attention to our response then, which is also included in paragraph 7 of document 69.1, where we clearly state that in terms of the implementation of decision 18.229, that Project Seahorse had actually independently secured funding for that work. It was not the CITES Secretariat that commissioned the work. This was done independently. We did not have our own funding to secure a separate study, so it made sense that we would incorporate, we would collaborate with work that was already ongoing. And so what we paid for, or what we commissioned, was summaries of the work that Project Seahorse was doing, but we make it very clear in that paragraph that we were not involved in the selection of the countries for the implementation reports, and that we are not responsible for any geographical references or opinions expressed in the reports that were produced by Project Seahorse. So I hope that clarifies to India that it was not the Secretariat who commissioned that work, and I would invite you, I'm sure Project Seahorse, who were speaking with IUC on behalf, at the IUCN desk, I should say, just now, and have offered to engage with range states. I invite you to discuss this bilaterally with Project Seahorse to address any concerns that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. India, I hope that was informative. So I do have some points of clarification to make about the discussion. So we had the US introduce CoP19 69.2, and in their introductory remarks, they noted their revised consolidated decisions. And so I understood that several parties spoke in support of those consolidated decisions explicitly. What I would like to do is ensure that I haven't missed any implicit intention to support something else. So on the parties that spoke in support of the US, if you do not speak in support of the US's consolidated amended decisions, I'd like to hear from you so that I have some clarity. But my default will be that when you're agreeing with the US, you're agreeing with their intervention in introducing the document. Just parties who spoke who I might have misinterpreted your intention. Yes, just so everyone's clear, it's InfDoc 52 that the United States mentioned. So I don't have any parties clarifying my understanding of their positions. I had mostly parties supporting the US's proposed approach, which is outlined in 69.1 18.2 as amended in their information document. So it is my conclusion that that is the general consensus in the room. I did hear from Canada in a document I've put somewhere here. And I didn't hear opposition to Canada's amendments that they would strike in the US's consolidated documents, decisions. 19DD, paragraph B, they would strike in consultation with species experts from the start of the paragraph. In decision 19EE, they would strike in consultation with species experts from the start of paragraph A and from paragraph B. So seeing no opposition to that as the way forward, I would conclude that we agree to those decisions and also that we agree to delete decisions 18.228 through 18.233 as they are either implemented or carried over in the new decisions. Thank you. If you'll excuse all of the paper shuffling on the podium, we are making better progress than I thought we would, so I did not have my documents ready. So our next document is document 67, CITES Big Cats Task Force, Felidae Species. This document has been submitted by the Standing Committee, so I'd like to invite the Chair of the Standing Committee to introduce it. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for taking a moment to find your documents so I could take a moment to find mine. Document CoP19, Doc 67, was submitted by the Standing Committee and responds to decisions 18.245 and 18.248 on African lion and the CITES Big Cats Task Force. With regards to the CITES Big Cat Task Force, the draft terms of reference and modus operandi were approved at the 74th meeting of the Standing Committee and are found in Annex 2 of the document. Draft Decision 19.AA in Annex 1 of the document continues aspects of Decision 18.245 that were not completed, notably to convene the Big Cats Task Force. As Decision 18.248 was also not completed, the Standing Committee requested the Chair, with the support of the Secretariat, to extend and update the previous decisions. In doing so, I propose extending those unfinished elements of Decision 18.248 related to the CITES Big Cat Task Force. This is found in Draft Decision 19.BB in Annex 1 to the present document. Those aspects of Decision 18.248 related to African lion are addressed in Doc 72 on African lions. So, Chair, the Standing Committee invites the Conference of the Parties to adopt draft decisions 19.AA and 19.BB concerning the CITES Big Cat Task Force contained in Annex 1 to the document, and to delete decisions 18.245 and 18.248. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair of the Standing Committee. Parties, I'd like to invite you to take the floor. I see India, followed by the European Union. India.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the only ranger state for all Asian big cat species, India is committed to maintaining viable populations of these charismatic creatures for future generations. The Government of India has invested significantly in Asian big cat conservation through focused programs such as Project Tiger, Project Snow Leopard, and Project Lion. We'd like to reiterate that India is home to 70% of the world's wild tiger population, and the coverage of Project Tiger has increased to approximately 75,000 square kilometers, encompassing 53 tiger reserves since 1973. It is important to mention that, as per the species of concern mentioned in the document, India is home to tigers, leopards, snow leopard, and clouded leopard. I am pleased to inform that the country has also introduced cheetah in the recent past, and we had declared cheetah extinct from India in 1952. Despite our best efforts and success in conserving these iconic species, poaching and illegal trade of big cats and their body parts are the biggest threat. India supports the proposal of the Secretariat presented by the Chair of the Standing Committee, and would like to actively participate in the CITES Big Cat Task Force. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, India. European Union.
Thank you, Chair. The EU and its member states support the proposed new decisions, revised terms of reference, and modus operandi for the CITES Big Cats Task Force, as agreed at Standing Committee 74. With respect to prioritizing key countries to be part of the task force, we would like to urge those parties who have not yet done so to report illegal trade in big cat specimen. As such, we remain open for possible extension of the list of priority countries. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. I see Thailand, followed by the United Kingdom. Thailand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thailand support the draft decision 19AA and 19BB concerning the Big Cat Task Force contained in the Annex 1 to the present document, and support the deletion of decision 18.245 and 18.248. Thank you.
Thank you, Thailand. United Kingdom.
We thank the Secretariat for pushing forward with this important piece of work, given the difficult context of the pandemic, and for taking into consideration parties' comments on the terms of reference and modus operandi, particularly those seeking to ensure that the trade in live cheetahs is captured in the task force mandate. The UK would like to suggest some additional amendments to the proposed decisions to refine language and bolster information sharing to consolidate action on big cats under the Convention. Regarding Decision 19AA, we propose to amend paragraph B to ensure that all activities contained in the terms of reference are captured in the decision, which, as written, is not entirely a comprehensive list of activities. So we would strike inter alia and add effectively carry out its mandate as stated in the terms of reference, comma, including, after 2, so that it reads, provide support to the task force allowing it to effectively carry out its mandate as stated in the terms of reference, comma, including. We would also propose more regular engagement between the task force and standing committee during the intersessional period to support its progress, and so we would propose adding and 78th to decision 19AA paragraph C after 77th, so that it now reads, report the findings and recommendations of the task force to the 77th and 78th meeting of the Standing Committee. We would suggest also the inclusion of an additional paragraph in 19BB that supports information sharing about the Big Cats Task Force, which would read, publish information generated by the Big Cats Task Force on the CITES website to keep relevant stakeholders informed and support the development of appropriate measures by source, transit, and destination states. Lastly, we would suggest to refine the language in Decision 19BB, paragraph A, by replacing range states with source, transit, and destination countries. Thank you.
United Kingdom, may I have your second last amendment again, your amendment, new paragraph 19BB?
Yep. So that would be publish information generated by the Big Cats Task Force on the CITES website to keep relevant stakeholders informed and support the development of appropriate measures by source, transit, and destination countries.
Thank you, United Kingdom. Zimbabwe.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. As Zimbabwe, we support the adoption of draft decisions 19AA and 19BB as provided for in Annex 1 of document 67. In addition to that, we also strongly urge the Secretariat to continue working closely with African Lion Range states when carrying out studies and in capacity building issues so as to correctly identify and close existing capacity or information gaps. And for this to happen, there's need for availing of funds. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. So seeing no more party requests for the floor, I'd like to open the floor to observers. I'm not seeing any observer requests for the floor, so I'll just take a moment to make sure I think I've picked up the amendments we've had in our discussions. Thank you. So it is my conclusion that the committee agrees to adopt the draft decisions 19AA and 19BB concerning the CITES Big Cats Task Force with the amendments proposed by the United Kingdom to 19AA paragraph B, which would replace inter alia with effectively carry out its mandate as stated in the terms of reference, comma, including. That would add a report to the 78th meeting of the Standing Committee in paragraph C of that same decision. And in draft decision 19BB, paragraph A, replace range states with source, transit, and destination countries. And add an additional paragraph, new C, publish information generated by the Big Cats Task Force on the CITES website to keep relevant stakeholders informed and support the development of appropriate measures by source, transit, and destination countries. So it's my conclusion that that's what we agree on. And that we also agree to delete decisions 18.245 and 18.248 as they have been implemented. So we have about 12 minutes left of our afternoon session, and given that we are meeting again this evening at 7, I would like to move to CoP19 Doc 59 and have that at least introduced, if not discussed. So I would like to invite Ethiopia to introduce CoP19 Document 59 on illegal trade in CITES, Asinonyx Jabatis. Ethiopia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Friends and colleagues, in introducing Document 59 on illegal trade in CITES, I wish to first remind ourselves of the reason why we are gathered here. The preamble to the article of the Convention states that international cooperation is essential for the protection of certain species of wild fauna and flora against overexploitation through international trade. In other words, CITES is a community tasked with safeguarding wildlife from the critical threat of trade, and that it can only do so by working as one with a single vision and with hands joined around the world. Today, cheetah population is declining to the extent that local extinctions become a common phenomenon, mainly due to illegal trade. Despite our increased law enforcement efforts to control illegal trade, cheetah cubs trafficking is significantly increasing. Incidents involving the illegal capture and trade in cheetah cubs are continuing and indeed are happening now as we speak. This document proposes decisions which will assist CITES to take concrete steps in protecting cheetahs from further illegal trade. We very much appreciate the suggestion by the Secretariat, and indeed many of them improve the draft decisions. However, we must establish a reporting mechanism so that Standing Committee can examine the issue more closely and provide recommendations to all of us who can help bring and end cheetah trafficking. Parties must first understand the path forward before they act. Colleagues, this means that fundamentally, above all else, we must work together because we cannot do it alone. I stand here and ask all of you for your help today to ensure that we can continue to share the planet with cheetah into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ethiopia. I will open the floor to parties. So I will take the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Chair. The UAE would like to thank Ethiopia for preparing this document. The UAE has issued several legislations that contribute to the conservation, to conserve biodiversity and combat illegal trade in wildlife, such as Federal Law Number 11. We have also issued Federal Law Number 22 of 2016 and its amendments, which organize the position of dangerous animals, and that includes all big cats. Fines for failing to comply with that law would be more than $200,000 and may be accompanied by jail time up to 6 months and confiscation of the animal. Cybercrime is also a crime punishable by UAE national laws and legislation, as it is prohibited to publish any advertisement for any product that is in violation of the legislation, such as advertising the sale of dangerous animals. There are always a coordination between the Electronic and Security Authority in the country to arrest violating advertisers and refer them to judicial authorities. After tracking advertisements for sale of endangered animals online, most of these ads were posted by fake communication channels outside the country. And as a result, 60% of such sites were banned in the UAE. With the experience of the UAE, these websites are unreliable sources of information which might carry many excursions. Therefore, we cannot support the data presented in this document as it has used mass media and unreliable sources of information such as advertisements and Instagram posts which does not reflect reality. According to the UAE's statistics, the issue of cheetahs trafficking no longer exists within the UAE, as the strict legislations are in place to prevent the position of these species. This issue have also been discussed in CoP18, and we agreed on the inclusion of this matter in CITES Big Cats Task Force. No new reports have occurred since then, and therefore we do not see any reason to reverse what we agreed on. And we believe that this matters related to illegal trade of cheetah should be addressed as part of the CITES Big Cats Task Force. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, UAE. I have time for one more intervention before we close, we'll go and have some dinner. So I will take the next party on my list. I have noted down all of the parties that have requested the floor in this list, so I will come back to you when we reconvene at 7. The next party on my list is the United States, so I'll give you the floor before our break. United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States shares Ethiopia's concerns about the impact of trafficking of on cheetah populations in the Horn of Africa. Through a new initiative, the United States is supporting a number of projects to address cheetah trafficking, with an emphasis on understanding the complex drivers propelling this trade, and with the aim to build collaboration and information sharing between source and destination countries. The United States supports the recommendations included in Doc CoP19 Doc 59, with the amendments outlined as follows. We support the Secretariat's suggested amendments to the 3 paragraphs in Draft Decision 19.AA as presented in its comments. With regard to Draft Decision 19.AA, we recommend adoption of a new paragraph that would direct the parties affected by illegal trade in cheetahs, that would encourage them to report to the Secretariat in advance of the 78th meeting of the Standing Committee on implementation of this decision. Taking a stepwise approach, we believe Draft Decision 19.BB should be directed to the Secretariat, and we support the Secretariat's suggested amendments to the first paragraph and suggest an additional paragraph as follows. 19.BB, subparagraph B, report to the Standing Committee at its 78th meeting on implementation of decisions 19.AA and 19.BB, paragraph A. Finally, we believe that the draft decision directed to the Standing Committee should be retained, contrary to the Secretariat's suggestion, and revised as draft decision 19.CC as follows. Directed to the Standing Committee. 19.CC. The Standing Committee shall consider the report of the Secretariat on implementation of decisions 19.AA and 19.BB and any relevant outcomes from the CITES Big Cat Task Force specific to the conservation of and illegal trade in cheetahs, and develop recommendations for consideration of the Conference of the Parties at its 20th meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, United States, and perhaps we could just have that in writing to the Secretariat during the break so that I have it comprehensively. So I have noted everyone who's requested the floor so far, which is what I indicated I would do. We will come back to this matter when we return for our evening session. So a couple of closing pieces of housekeeping. Earlier I struck the working group on CITES and forests. HSI has clarified for me that they were taking the floor on behalf of SSN, so we will amend the list of observers on that list. I've indicated that I would take summary records 8 and 9 first thing this evening, so before we come back to document 59, I would like to take summary records 8 and 9. And just a reminder for everyone who's preparing tomorrow that I intend to take the first 2 ComDocs on the strategic vision and the World Wildlife Trade Report, the 2 that are published and have been published all day today, first thing tomorrow morning. I'd just like to pass to the Secretariat, who also has a small update for us.
Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder about working groups meeting now. So there's the aquatic species listed in CITES appendices, a proposal for new an ISTMO 2 at 5. Yeah, so aquatic species listed in the CITES appendices, ISTMO 2. Wildlife crime enforcement support in West and Central Africa will take place in ISTMO 1 at 5. CITES and forest in Caribe 5. And then, of course, the budget working group is also meeting at 5:30. Also, Africa is meeting in ISTMO 3 to finalize some arrangements relating to membership. I would like to remind you to take your voting card, but not to take the receivers and the headsets with you when you leave. So remember to take your voting card, but please do not remove the receivers from the venue. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretariat. So I will see you all back here at 6:45. Please as promptly as possible so that we don't lose too much time on our quorum.
Apologies, I forgot one. The Rhino Working Group will meet tomorrow morning from 8 to 9 in Caribe 5. So important to note, tomorrow morning, 8 to 9 in Caribe 5, the Rhino Working Group. Thank you.